I'm liking it, but at the same time, I got some problems. Before we hop into this review of chapter 301 of My Hero Academia, please do me a favor and leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and here we are to review chapter 301 of My Hero Academia. And I'm liking it, but at the same time, I'm a little bit concerned. And by a little bit, I mean a lot of bit, because it's confirming some suspicions I had, and at the same time adding new suspicions that I'm not happy to have. Let's just talk about it. So we open up with, in my opinion, one of the most interesting things about this chapter. It's the idea that Rei comes from a prestigious family line, but one that's supposedly dying or poor or something of the sort. Because honestly, when at first Rei's offered up as an offering for a quirk marriage by her parents, I'm thinking, oh, this is just a family line wanting to continuously expend its power. You know, you want to root yourself out throughout more parts of society, so you sell off your children in order to get better positions for your future children and stuff like that. Seemed to make sense to me. However, then we move on to the idea that even knowing that it was a quirk marriage, she said she would become my wife for the sake of her family. Now that implies to me that her family is low on money or dying out or something of the sort, because if you come from a prestigious family line that's well off, there's no need to marry off for the sake of your family, considering what the implications of that is. Like, if you're well off, you don't really need to marry for money, or is what I'm assuming this quirk marriage was. But the thing about that is, it seems like Endeavor actually developed legitimate feelings for her, because we have the scene, which was mentioned forever ago, how in the end, she mentioned one time that she actually really liked those flowers that they saw in that walk, and he remembered that for the rest of his life and kept bringing them to her and kept doing that for her, showing Endeavor was an actual decent human being. And I like that. I do. It comes to an issue I'm having with Endeavor's characterization, but I'm liking it at the same time because it shows. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'll talk about that because I'll talk about that in a second. Moving on, we see what Endeavor really thought about Rei. He thought that she was just like ice, strong, yet if he touched her, she probably melts away because she just seemed fragile, as ice is. Sure, it's very durable, it's very powerful, it's very dangerous, but at the same time, it's still ice. You give it a little too much heat and it's going to melt away. And one of my favorite parts in this chapter is that Endeavor asks worriedly, "Are you alright, Rei?" And she says, "Not at all. That's why I'm here." And the expression she gives in this panel, I'm not sure if this is just weirdly drawn or what I hope it is just she's conveying conviction. She's showing off that she has learned from her time being locked away, giving that time to reflect, and she's ready to reflect with Endeavor considering all the things that have changed. It's a very, like, hopefully I can flash the panel up on screen without getting attacked. But the thing is, when I look at this panel, I'm looking at it like, this seems such, like, it seems to hold so many emotions. Like, you see the almost kind of smile, but at the same time you see the look of focused determination in her eyes, which is so much different than the look that we know that Todoroki has of her when she looked legitimately terrified of him. I like this. It shows development for Rei, a development that happened off screen, of course, but it's a development that I can understand and a development that I can respect for a character who's really been the sidest of side characters, because technically Endeavor is still a side character. But Rei, for the longest time, is just a part of his backstory. So seeing that she had growth is something that really intrigues me, and I understand that we may not see any of it at all, because Rei is still not the main character of this side story. So I can get us not seeing that, though I wish we kind of did, because this is a really nice development for a character who's gotten so little. And then we cut to Dabi, and this is where, like, my worries come in for the chapter, because we see that he obviously understood that his dad wasn't going to die, because his father was built different. And he makes his father, he's talking about how he made Endeavor face the public with his past truths. However, the thing that I personally don't understand yet, because I'm assuming that Dabi didn't die until a few years into Todoroki's life, but not long enough that Todoroki would remember him, but long enough that Natsuo and Fuyumi would remember him. Because we see that he talks about all these different people. Enji Todoroki, Mom, Fuyumi-chan, Natsuo-kun, Shoto, watch me in the pits of the underworld. And here's the thing. I can understand why he would hate his parents at this point, because what raises at the end of the chapter illuminates that for me. But I don't get why he would put that kind of torture on someone like Fuyumi, someone who only cared for him, as evident by this chapter. Natsu, who literally cared for his brother. Like, I'm assuming the way he reacts to Endeavor now is because of what happened to Toya. And Shoto, a kid who was literally just born. Like, this is the... I get it. I'm understanding it now. You know what? We'll talk about that in a second. But we see young Dabi. Dabi is complaining about how Endeavor won't train with him, and Endeavor tries to reiterate to this poor child that you're not built for this. Because as the doctor explains, and as a lot of people theorize, I'm not sure if this was confirmed in the past or not, Toya inherited Endeavor's flame, which is good because it's stronger, it's reinforced, like quirks have been getting stronger over the generations, which makes sense. But he got his mom's constitution. Just like Endeavor mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, Rei is strong, but yet weak. She could melt away, just like Natsuo's, not Natsuo, just like Toya's body's doing, because it's not in his constitution to handle something like fire. And we see that Endeavor's like, please, stop. I've told you several times already, I'm doing this for your own good. You can't train because you're literally going to kill yourself. It's basically what Endeavor says. And I understand Endeavor's mindset there. He still cares about his son's life. And this is what I like a lot. We see Endeavor actually still cares for his family, but at the same time, we also see the good Endeavor, but then we see the bad Endeavor that clamors to surpass All Might in one way or another. And we get the reiteration of Toya, if it's you, you can surpass All Might, from before he knew about Toya's problems with dealing with his fire. And then we get to see I'm getting so many names confused. We see Fuyumi being best sister ever at like age probably like 3, and when Dabi's trying to explain to her, Toya's trying to explain to her, please, don't worry about me. So what if I get burned? I can do it, please, have faith in me. I know my body the best. And Fuyumi literally speaks facts to him, just like his dad has been doing. I don't like you seeing you burned alive. That kind of sucks. Please don't do that. And Toya gets angry because of the conviction that Endeavor has given him to surpass All Might. And thus he goes off, stomps off, and keeps training. And what the thing is here, I'm assuming we skip a little bit of time because we see Rei talking about the idea that, oh, no, she shouldn't have another child with Endeavor because that's going to drive Toya even crazier. However, the thing is, Endeavor brings up a interesting point. He says, he inherited my foolishness as well. If we want to make him give up, we have to make something better. And he straight up says, Toya can't surpass All Might, just like I can't surpass All Might, simply because of his constitution. And the thing is, Rei looks terrified here, but I'm assuming that's because she was down with the second child, not down with the third. However, I'm not sure what this expression means. She looks almost alright with the idea of Natsuo. Like, she looks happy to just have another baby, which is nice enough. But we see Endeavor suffering to be number 2. We see Toya suffering the fact that he thinks his dad doesn't think he's not good enough. And we see All Might still being the number 1 hero, completely indifferent to the entire affair. And then we see more of crazed Rei. Like, we see where she's falling here, because you see her eyes get smaller and darker and they're going more dim. And then Shoto's born, because obviously Natsuo didn't work. So we see Endeavor like this mixed sort of happy, because he's like, yes, someone who can surpass All Might and also help my first son. Rei actually looks a kind of sort of happy here, which a little bit confuses me. But she looks like she's stressed, obviously, because she just gave birth again. But like, this doesn't look like an expression of pure terror, an expression of pure fear. This looks like a sort of happy mother. Now that she sees that, one, a son that inherited both of their constitutions, literally low-key a perfect child, and Dabi just looks empty. He looks torn apart. But we can also see time has passed because Dabi's hair is purely white now. He's literally lost all aspects of his dad's side and has gone fully towards his mom, purely constitution-wise. He's burned away all the color in his hair. And we see that he's training out in the woods, burning posts, likely how his dad taught him to train when he was younger. And the main thing Toya wants is his dad to look at him. He wants to be accepted and acknowledged. And I can understand that. Because here's the thing. I'll talk about it in a second. So we get through and we see that Toya doesn't care. He literally doesn't care about what his father's been telling him now. He only cares about the fact of becoming a hero, becoming the number 1 hero, surpassing Endeavor, surpassing All Might, because that's what his dad put into him. And it's the fact that the rest of the society is always focused on heroes. They all want to be heroes too, and Toya can't focus on that. He can't focus on the fact that he has 3 younger brothers. Or no, he can't focus on the fact that he has siblings, Fuyumi and Natsuo. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the idea that he could have other paths than a hero, because he's Endeavor's son. This is what he desires. He wants to become better than Endeavor, better than everyone else. And we can see that he starts to light himself up. He starts to burn ablaze, and Rei instantly calls out he needs to cool down. And then Dad, what I like here is that Toya said, Dad ignited this in me. It won't go away. I can't get it out of my head. Look at me, Endeavor. Look at me. Because you can see what happens is Rei comes up with Shoto, and what Dabi sees is his replacement. He sees little Todoroki there, and he's like, I have to do this. And what happens is he pushes past his father and goes to kill Shoto, or at least is what I'm assuming. Because what I thought was, when he says, look at me, well, actually, no. I think this Endeavor line is separate from Dabi, or Toya in this moment, because there's no line connecting it to him. So when he says, look at me, he goes to attack Rei, and he goes to attack Shoto, the baby, and his mom. And Rei initially explains that the one in the most pain isn't you, and you weren't the only one at the time who refused to look at that child. That's the end of the chapter, and let's talk about it. One, I want to address one thing. I like this new characterization of Endeavor because it shows a more realistic fall to grief. Like, the thing that I never understood about Endeavor was, it seemed like since he was a background element of Shoto's story, I never got why he was so obsessed with surpassing All Might. But I do sort of understand it now, and I do understand where his obsession with Shoto came from, because Shoto was not only his key to surpassing All Might, as he always wanted, but he was also the key to helping his first son. It shows that the good sides of Endeavor, the side of Endeavor that cares for his family and hopes for their betterment, it does exist still, even in that crazed man, but it also shows that that crazed man is still there. It makes the crazy Endeavor from the beginning of the series more realistic, and I like that. Another thing that I like seeing that Toya's fall is really because he inherited his dad's foolishness. It's that inability to accept the fact that there are gonna be people better than you, and he suffers with that, and he goes crazy. However, I feel like it's not entirely realistic enough or entirely well portrayed enough for me to believe it fully and not just accept the fact that Toya's crazy. That's the thing that I have to live with. That Toya's crazy, and I can't expect anything more out of him. Because the reason I poked at the idea of I'm not liking the fact that he's going to kill all his family because they happen to exist, it messes with me. Because I understand him hating Endeavor. Because Endeavor put this false hope in him that he could be better than everyone else, and then just to flip on him once he realized his body was too weak, that he can't do it, and now Toya needs to change goals in life. I don't know. I can understand, though I do think Toya was young enough at this point that all these warnings from his dad, the person who should know best about what was happening to Toya, considering he's literally burning himself alive, that Toya's going through all this physical suffering, that yeah, maybe burning yourself isn't the best solution. I don't know. Maybe not. So, but whatever. Let's give that a pass. And from what Rei implies at the end of this chapter is that she's taking responsibility for the fact that she looked at Toya and went like, oh, you know what, I'm not messing with that either, because she saw that her son obviously wasn't good, and she in the same way, like Endeavor, saw an imperfect child and was like, oh, that kind of sucks, I don't really want to deal with that. And I know that's a really oversimplification of it, but I can understand what Rei says at the end of the chapter when she goes like, oh, you're not the only one who refused to look at that child. Because what Rei saw likely was a monster. She saw a continuation of her husband in purest form. Like this person, like Endeavor without the humanity is what she likely saw within Toya. A person whose only goal in life was to surpass All Might, and their only goal in life was to surpass his father, because that's all he had. Endeavor, before we meet him up to this point, still had a childhood. He still had other things to work for, other things to believe in, and of course he didn't have a quirk that damaged his body. He had something else, and the thing is, Toya didn't have anything else since his father raised him from RIP to be the strongest to ever strong. So I can definitely see why Rei would be disconnected, especially if she's having these other kids who are quote-unquote normal. Fuyumi didn't inherit the quirk that Endeavor wanted, so he just raised her like a normal girl, and that's fine. Natsuo, same thing, raised her like a normal boy. Nate raised him like a normal boy. And then I can understand where Rei and Endeavor's disconnect with Toya is, because Toya is not making sense. You're burning yourself alive, and you seem not to care, even though the person who you're supposedly doing this all for is begging you to stop. And that's the main issue I have with this. I have no problem with Rei's characterization in this. I have no problem with Endeavor's characterization in this. I'm even liking that Horikoshi is retroactively building more layers into Endeavor, adding more meat to a story to make Endeavor more interesting as a character overall. I like that we're slowly seeing Rei's development, and we're also seeing the family dynamics of the Todoroki family. What I'm not liking is that Dabi seems crazy for no logical reason other than the fact that he's crazy. Maybe this is because I never went through something like Dabi went through. I never went through my entire young life being told that I can do something only for it to flip on me. So maybe that's how children react. And I can understand because children are very simple. But I also know that for the most part, children, they don't respond to pain well. They don't respond to, you don't like getting hurt when you're young. You can do it, you can fall off, you can do some crazy things as a child, like scrape your knee, get up and keep it running until later. But Toya is actively killing himself here. So I don't know where the crazy came from other than to just write it off to the fact that he inherited Endeavor's will fully without any of the humanization that Endeavor went through. Which is an okay enough explanation, but I don't vibe with it enough. And seeing that this monster of a family, the monstrous family that the Todoroki family supposedly was, just isn't real. It's just something that Dabi seemed to make up in his head. There's no reason for Dabi to hate his little sister, who just cared for him. We don't get to see Natsuo and Dabi's relationship enough, but we see that Dabi still calls Natsuo Natsu. It's a little nickname. Sure, it's just removing one letter, but still, that's a nickname for his little brother. And that seems to imply care. And once again, Shoto was just born. None of this is Shoto's fault. None of this is Fuyumi's fault. None of this is Natsuo's fault. It's all his parents. So I can get somewhat of him hating his parents. But this is something that is no longer purely the fault of Endeavor. This is no longer purely the fault of Rei. It is also the fault of Toya. So I cannot feel bad for Toya in this sense, because Toya did it to himself. His father warned him multiple times, several times at this point, even when he hadn't fully lost his hair colorization at this point. If I'm looking at this right, Dabi still has most of his black hair and not as many burns, only one bandage on him because he's slowly burning himself, when Endeavor says, I've told you several times already, I'm doing this for your own good. Endeavor is trying to reason with his child that this isn't the life for him. So Dabi taking that final step, that step into darkness, is purely his fault. So he cannot blame his parents fully, because one of his parents, supposedly the more abusive one, at least in his eyes, is the one who tried to help him the most. And he just doesn't listen, and he ignores all that for his own good. For his own bad, really. And that's my main issue. I like the characterization of everyone else, but now, as the more I see of young Dabi, the more I see of young Toya, it's making even less sense for him to be the way he is, and it just boils him down to a basic crazy person, crazy for the sake of being crazy because Horikoshi needed a villain. There's nothing else. I've lost all interest in Dabi as a character with layers, because the more I see Dabi in the modern day saying that he doesn't care and he doesn't feel anymore, and the more I see of past Dabi being warned repeatedly to stop doing this and just doing it to himself, I've lost sympathy for him. And I understand this is maybe exactly what Horikoshi's heading for. I wouldn't be shocked, because sometimes you just need a villain to be a villain. But I had wished that I could more fully understand a Dabi that actually has reasons for being the way he is. But obviously, I'm not getting that. I'm getting this Dabi. And while he's okay, and I will repeatedly say that this Dabi is okay, I kind of hope for something better. But that's my thoughts. What do you guys think about this chapter? I still think this is a good solid 8 out of 10 chapter, because giving us more context, it's just context that I don't like, because I wanted a more interesting character out of Dabi. But obviously I can't get that, and I like everything else about this chapter. So I still say a solid 8 out of 10 is a good continuation. Can't see what happens next chapters when we get, instead of Endeavor's perspective, we get Rei's perspective. It's gonna be cool stuff. Tell me what you guys think about this chapter in the comment section down below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.